right now, there is no regulation issued to regulate cryptocurrency in the U.S. The Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century FIT21 has been passed by the House, but it is not yet enforced. Where are we at when it comes to crypto regulation?
This is a great question, and it is the question on the tip of everybody's tongue. So I'm happy to lay out for you how the Trump administration is approaching making sure that America is the crypto capital of the world. So first of all, as you heard, there are important legislative efforts underway. Because it is a new session of Congress, there are efforts in both the House and the Senate to work on comprehensive crypto legislation. There are efforts around stablecoin legislation, which the president said at the White House Crypto Summit that he'd like to have on his desk by August. There's also underway efforts to promote and put together a market structure bill that would look at clarifying the role of the SEC and the CFTC over cryptocurrencies. But meanwhile, Congress is working on those important efforts. Both of our agencies have been working together as one to bring the crypto clarity that we can under our existing authorities. So on the CFTC side, I was very pleased within the first week of my acting chairmanship to announce that the CFTC would be having a series of public roundtables to hear from industry experts, and among those is digital assets. We've also been looking at implementing the president's executive orders. So one of the president's executive orders is very important. It directs the president's working group on digital asset markets, of which I am a member, as well as the SEC and the Secretary of the Treasury, to put together an important report that is going to outline our approach to providing regulatory clarity for cryptocurrencies. So that is something that the full report is due in 180 days from the issuance of the president's executive order. But there are important milestones in between. So there was a 30-day milestone. Currently, we're working on the 60-day milestone, which is March 24th. And then the 180-day milestone, like I said. In the meantime, there's been regular and consistent communication on a weekly basis between the members of the president's working group, and that includes with the CFTC and the SEC. The SEC has been very busy. They have announced an SEC crypto task force under the leadership of Commissioner Hester Peirce. They've already had their first roundtable, which was last week, and they've put out a number of several dozen thoughtful questions on how do you delineate what is a security and what is not a security. So I'm looking forward to, under the strong unifying leadership of this administration, providing that crypto clarity that so many, not only in the United States, but all around the world, have been seeking for years.
Now, you just mentioned the SEC and the task force meeting that was held last Friday, focusing on how securities laws and how it will apply to digital assets. But this is a very fast-moving industry or asset class. Are you guys moving fast enough to regulate it?
Absolutely. You've seen decisive action from both of our agencies in just the first couple weeks to make sure that we are bringing the regulatory clarity to the United States. So the SEC, within just the second or third day of the administration, rescinded SAB 121, which provided restrictions on banks that are public companies from custodying cryptocurrencies. This, I think, was a tragic mistake, which unfortunately captured responsible banks from providing the most robust custody services for cryptocurrency. And this is in a time where we saw many frauds and many scams where customers thought that their crypto was safe, but in fact it wasn't. So I think it's very important that we're seeing the extension of the regulatory perimeter to ensure that the crypto custody services are as strong and robust as possible. The other thing you've seen is an end to regulation by enforcement. So within my second or third week of my acting chairmanship, I said we are stopping regulation by enforcement, and key to that was my restructuring of our enforcement division, simplifying it from almost over a dozen different task forces into just two: complex fraud and retail fraud and general enforcement. This shows a focus on fraudsters and scammers and helping victims, not in trying to do regulation by enforcement, which creates a lack of regulatory clarity, and it's a completely inappropriate way to extend regulations over a new asset class or a new sector of the economy.
So if it's not regulation by enforcement, what is it?
We have been doing a number of different staff advisories. So for the CFTC, because many of the regulation by enforcement settlement orders that we've put out in the last several years not only created confusion over the crypto or digital asset sector, it also disrupted our traditional derivatives markets. The CFTC's bread and butter is overseeing the nearly $700 trillion notional global derivatives markets. And so when you call into question some of the important key aspects of our regulatory framework, such as extraterritoriality, when does a U.S. entity or a non-U.S. entity need to register with the CFTC, that is something so critically foundational to our regulatory framework, and all of that has been called into question in the last several years. So what we've been doing is issuing staff advisories that will provide that regulatory clarity. So it's very clear when you are a crypto exchange, when do you have to register with the CFTC? What requirements do you have to have into place? And when do you not have to register? I think that's the most fundamental question we've been hearing over the years is just, how do we register? Do we have to register? And what do we have to comply with?
Are crypto tokens more akin to commodities, or should they be classified as securities? So my point is, in terms of the CFTC or the SEC, how are you guys going to be cooperating in your regulations?
This is a key aspect, and you really have to look at the underlying asset, and you need to look at what is the activity that it is being used for. So I like to think of crypto assets as essentially a crypto or tech wrapper around an underlying asset. And that underlying asset, as I've said before, it can be money, or it can be some other kind of asset. If it's a different kind of asset, it can be a financial asset or a non-financial asset. So when we look at the realm of financial assets, I've always said that if you're in the United States and you're doing capital raising activity, you better have a good securities lawyer, because it's a good chance that you could be, in fact, engaging in capital raising that is subject to the securities laws. That is actually some of the work that the SEC Crypto Task Force is working on, and we look forward to seeing the results of that effort.